The keepers knew something was wrong the moment they saw her. Kaya, the once vibrant western lowland gorilla, sat motionless in the corner of her enclosure, her massive arms wrapped around herself like she was holding an invisible child. Her dark eyes, usually so full of intelligence, stared blankly at the concrete floor. The staff had seen grief before, but this was different. 3 months had passed since her baby died, and with each day, a little more of Kaya's spirit faded away. The vet reports showed no physical illness, just a broken heart. Keepers would find her in the same spot every morning, unmoved, barely breathing. She wasn't just mourning, she was disappearing. And then, on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, everything changed, with the arrival of one small visitor who would remind Kaya what it meant to be alive. Dr. Riley Prescott adjusted her glasses as she reviewed Kaya's chart for the 10th time that week. The numbers didn't lie. Weight dropping, vital signs weakening. "It's not malnutrition," she told her team, her voice tight with frustration. "It's like she's decided to stop living." The other gorillas had tried to comfort Kaya at first, grooming her fur, sharing their food, but she pushed them all away. Now they left her alone in her corner, as if respecting her sorrow. The senior keeper, a gruff man named Gene, wiped his eyes when he thought no one was looking. "Seen this before," he muttered. "Animals die of broken hearts, same as people." Just when they were about to give up hope, a school group entered the primate house, and one brown-haired boy paused longer than the others at Kaya's exhibit. The kitchen staff had tried everything, Kaya's favorite fruits, special treats, even hand-feeding. But day after day, her food sat untouched. Dr. Prescott's notes grew increasingly desperate. Day 14, refuses all nourishment. The other gorillas ate heartily, their chewing sounds echoing through the enclosure. But Kaya just turned her face to the wall. The staff knew the terrible truth. Without intervention, she wouldn't last the month. That afternoon, as sunlight streamed through the high windows, a field trip from Jefferson Elementary crowded around the glass. Most children barely glanced at the still, sad gorilla before moving on to the more active animals. But one boy, 10-year-old Noah Carter, with his too big backpack and scuffed sneakers, stood perfectly still, his small hand pressed against the barrier separating humans from gorillas. And then, something miraculous happened.
Anyone who's ever lost a child would recognize the way Kaya cradled herself, arms curved in that universal shape of motherhood, holding nothing but air and memory. Her baby, little Leo, had lived just 17 days before his tiny heart stopped in the night. The keepers would never forget the sounds Kaya made when she found him, guttural, primal cries that echoed through the zoo at dawn. For days she refused to let them take his body, rocking him gently as if he might wake up. Now, 3 months later, she still moved with that same careful rhythm, like she was afraid to disturb a sleeping infant. When Noah's small hand touched the glass, something flickered in Kaya's eyes. Her massive head lifted slowly, nostrils flaring as she caught his scent. The crowd gasped as the 300-pound gorilla rose to her feet and took one shuffling step forward, then another, drawn to this boy like a magnet.
The primate house fell silent as Kaya moved toward the glass with a purpose no one had seen in months. Parents instinctively pulled their children back, but Noah stood his ground, his palms still pressed against the barrier. Dr. Prescott's radio crackled as staff members called for backup, fearing the worst. But when Kaya reached the glass, she didn't pound or rage. Instead, with a tenderness that brought tears to grown men's eyes, she raised her enormous hand and placed it exactly opposite Noah's small one. "Sweet Jesus," whispered Gene, his voice breaking. "She hasn't done that since—" He didn't need to finish. Everyone knew, not since before Leo died. The moment hung suspended, human and gorilla connected through inches of glass, until retired keeper Eugene Whitaker dropped his clipboard with a clatter. "I know that boy," he said, his face pale. "God help us. I know exactly who he is." Noah wasn't just another face in the crowd. 5 years earlier, when Kaya was pregnant with Leo, this same boy had visited every single week as part of the zoo's Junior Keeper program. Old Jean remembered it all: how the toddler Noah would press his nose to the glass, how Kaya would gently mimic his movements. He called her Big Mama, Jean told Dr. Prescott, pulling a faded photo from his wallet. There they were, a beaming 2-year-old Noah in a red hoodie, and Kaya, her belly round with Leo, mirroring the child's pose. Then one day, they just stopped coming. The staff had assumed Kaya forgot after her baby was born. They were wrong. Dead wrong. Because the way she looked at Noah now, those intelligent eyes bright with recognition, proved gorilla memories last much longer than anyone suspected.
Noah didn't jump or shout like the other children. He just stood there, his small hand steady against the glass, his eyes locked with Kaya's. The gorilla studied him intently, then did something that made Dr. Prescott's breath catch. She tapped the glass 3 times, paused, then tapped twice more. Noah's eyes widened. Without thinking, he copied the pattern. Tap, tap, tap. Pause. Tap, tap. A sound erupted from Kaya's chest. Not a growl, not a grunt, but something deeper, richer. "That's their game," Jean whispered urgently. "They used to play it all the time before Leo, before the grief, before Noah disappeared from her life." The crowd watched in awe as boy and gorilla communicated in this simple, profound language of taps and rumbles, a connection spanning 5 lost years in a matter of seconds. Dr. Prescott's radio buzzed with frantic updates as more staff rushed to the scene, but no one dared interfere as Kaya began moving her hands in slow, deliberate motions. "She's signing," a junior keeper gasped. Though rusty, the gestures were unmistakable. Baby. Sad. Where? Noah didn't understand, but Jean translated hoarsely. "She's asking about her child." The air left the room. How do you explain death to a grieving mother? Noah, with the uncomplicated wisdom of children, found the answer. He knelt down, pressed his forehead to the glass, and closed his eyes. For a terrifying moment, no one moved. Then, with the gentleness that belied her strength, Kaya lowered her massive head until it rested against Noah's, separated only by that thin barrier. Forehead to forehead, soul to soul.
The weight of grief had bowed Kaya's spine for weeks, making her seem smaller than her formidable size. But now, with Noah before her, she sat up straight, regal, alert, fully present for the first time since Leo's death. Dr. Prescott scrambled through old files, her hands shaking as she found what she was looking for. Program records showing Noah's regular visits, notes about his special bond with the pregnant Kaya. They were family, she realized aloud. When Noah's father died suddenly, his devastated mother had stopped bringing him to the zoo. No warning, no goodbye. And Kaya? She'd waited, patiently, hopelessly, for years. Now seeing Noah again, something in her weary eyes said she'd been expecting him all along. There's a particular light that appears in the eyes of someone who's found what they thought was lost forever. That light burned bright in Kaya's dark eyes as she looked at Noah. She reached toward him with a trembling hand, her fingers splayed against the glass as if trying to touch his face. "She thinks she's hers," Jean said thickly. And in a way, maybe he was. Because when Noah whispered words too soft for others to hear, Kaya did something that defied all scientific explanation. She turned, picked up a piece of fruit that had sat ignored for days, and took a bite. Then another, and another. The staff erupted in quiet cheers, but Dr. Prescott just watched, humbled, as a grieving gorilla taught them all about the healing power of love remembered. The glass vibrated with their secret language. Tap, tap, tap. Pause. Tap, tap.
Kaya's massive fingers repeated the pattern perfectly, just as she had 5 years ago when a toddler Noah first taught it to her. Dr. Prescott's pen hovered over her notepad. This wasn't just mimicry. This was memory. The retired keeper Gene wiped his eyes with a calloused hand. "She's been waiting to play again," he murmured. Noah's laughter rang out as Kaya added a new variation, her dark eyes sparkling for the first time in months. The crowd stood mesmerized by this impossible conversation between boy and beast. Dr. Prescott's clipboard hit the floor with a clatter. "Primates don't retain memories that long," she insisted, staring at the archival photos Gene had produced. Yet, here was the proof. Baby Noah in his red hoodie playing the same tapping game with a pregnant Kaya. The dates didn't lie. 5 years, 3 months, and 16 days had passed. The junior keepers exchanged glances. Science said one thing, but their eyes told another. Kaya remembered. She never forgot. And now she was signing to Noah, crude but unmistakable gestures. "You come where?" Noah's small voice cracked as he whispered through the glass. "Big Mama?" Kaya's entire body shuddered. That name, her name, from his lips. Her massive hands flew to her chest, then reached desperately toward him. The crowd erupted in murmurs, but Noah kept talking, pouring out words he didn't even know he remembered. "I'm sorry I was gone. My dad." He trailed off, but Kaya seemed to understand. She pressed her forehead to the glass again, her breath fogging the surface in quick bursts. Dr. Prescott finally understood. This wasn't just recognition. This was forgiveness. Gene's trembling hands unfolded a crumpled Polaroid. Noah at age 3, grinning as Kaya gently pressed her palm against the glass behind his. "Took this the last day they came," the old keeper rasped. The date stamp confirmed it, exactly 1 week before Noah's father's funeral. Dr. Prescott's scientific mind reeled. 5 years. 5 long years of Kaya waiting, watching, wondering where her small friend had gone. And now? Now she refused to let Noah out of her sight, following him along the enclosure as he moved, her eyes never leaving his face. The parallel was undeniable. Both had lost family. Both had grieved alone. Until today. The truth spilled out in halting sentences. Noah's mother, Charlotte, had been crying in the gift shop when Gene found her. "After my husband died," she confessed, "everything reminded me, even the zoo. So they'd stopped coming. No goodbye, no explanation." Kaya had been pregnant then. Did she think Noah abandoned her before her baby came? The pieces fell into place with heartbreaking clarity. Dr. Prescott adjusted her glasses to hide her tears. This wasn't just animal behavior. This was a mother's love, stretched thin by years, but never broken. When Noah whispered, "I didn't mean to leave you," Kaya did something extraordinary. She picked up an apple and ate. The archival footage told the story in flickering images. A tiny Noah blowing kisses to Kaya through the glass every Friday afternoon. He promised to meet her baby, Charlotte recalled, her voice thick with regret. Then the videos stopped. The attendance logs showed months of empty spaces where Noah's name should have been. Meanwhile, Kaya's records told their own tale. She'd begun refusing food the week Noah missed his first visit. Coincidence? Dr. Prescott wasn't sure anymore. Because right now, as Noah sang the same silly song he'd crooned to her years ago, Kaya was humming along. Not possible! Except it was happening. The medical report was brutally clinical. Neonatal failure. Time of death, 0237 hours. Kaya's keepers would never forget that night. Her piercing screams, the way she cradled Leo's tiny body for days, rocking back and forth in primal grief. Noah listened quietly as Jean described it, his small hands pressed to the glass. Kaya watched him with ancient eyes, then did something that stopped every heart in the room. She pantomimed cradling a baby, then pointed to Noah and made the sign for mine. Charlotte gasped. The message was clear. In Kaya's heart, Noah had always been her first child. The audio logs told the real horror. Night after night, Kaya's wails had echoed through the empty zoo, sounds so human the night guards couldn't sleep. Like a woman mourning, one report stated. Now, as Noah described losing his father, Kaya made a soft whimpering noise deep in her chest. She remembered that pain. She knew it. Their grief had mirrored each other across species and years. When Noah began crying silently, Kaya did the only thing she could. She pressed her entire massive arm against the glass, as if to hug him through the barrier. Even Dr. Prescott had to look away.
The nickname echoed through the observation logs like a refrain. Subject responds positively to Big Mama from Juvenile Visitor. Noah had christened her during their first meeting, and the name stuck. Now, hearing it again, Kaya shuffled in an excited circle before returning to Noah, her eyes bright. Charlotte wiped her eyes. He talked about her for months after we stopped coming. The puzzle pieces locked together. Kaya's depression hadn't just been about losing Leo. She'd lost Noah, too. 2 children gone. Until today. When Noah said, "I'm here now, Big Mama," Kaya did something no one expected. She went to her sleeping corner and brought back a ragged piece of cloth she'd saved for 5 years. Noah's lost mitten. The dates aligned with chilling precision. Noah's last visit, March 14th. His father's obituary, March 21st. Kaya's first recorded food refusal, March 28th. She'd waited 2 weeks for her small friend to return before slipping into grief. Now, as Noah described the funeral, there were so many flowers. Kaya made a soft nest of straw and gestured for him to sit. When he pressed his hand to the glass where she indicated, she lay down facing him, their palms aligned through the barrier. The message was clear. I'm here. I remember. You're not alone. Even the most hardened keepers found themselves reaching for tissues.
The keeper logs told the tragic story in dry ink. Day 14. Subject continues watching entrance during visiting hours. Day 28. Persistent positioning near viewing area. Month 3. No longer waits. Taya had spent a quarter year watching for Noah's return before her hope faded. Now, as the boy pressed his tear-streaked face against the glass, she gently traced the outline of his small features with one massive finger. The parallel was heartbreaking. Just as Kaya had waited for Noah, she'd later wait in vain for her stillborn Leo to wake up. 2 abandonments, 2 irreparable losses, until this miraculous reunion that defied all odds. Dr. Prescott's jaw dropped as Kaya formed the signs with surprising clarity. Baby, sad, love. These were commands she'd been taught during Noah's visits, back when handlers hoped she might communicate with her own infant. The old gorilla's hands moved stiffly but deliberately, her eyes never leaving Noah's face. When the boy hesitantly signed back, "Friend, home," Kaya startled everyone by suddenly gathering an armful of straw and presenting it to the glass like an offering. Jean choked up. "She's making him a nest," he whispered. After 5 years, she still wanted to care for her human child.
The clipboard trembled in the zoologist's hands as she voiced the unscientific thought haunting her. What if she thinks he's come back to her? The staff exchanged uneasy glances. Primates weren't supposed to form cross-species bonds this deep. They certainly weren't supposed to remember specific humans after half a decade. Yet here was Kaya, grooming Noah's reflection in the glass as she'd once done for Leo. The evidence was undeniable. This wasn't just recognition. This was a mother welcoming home her long-lost child. When Noah whispered, "I missed you," and Kaya responded with a contented rumble, even Dr. Prescott's clinical detachment shattered. Jean's blunt words hung in the air as Kaya demonstrated unmistakable maternal behavior, gently patting the ground beside her, making soft food-begging noises when Noah yawned, even attempting to cover him with straw through the glass. The elderly keeper shook his head in wonder. In her mind, that boy's always been hers. Noah, sensing her intentions, curled up against the barrier in response. Kaya immediately mirrored his posture, their bodies aligned like parentheses. The crowd fell silent, bearing witness to this impossible reunion between a grieving gorilla and the child who'd unknowingly abandoned her.
Noah unzipped his backpack with trembling hands. The worn gray elephant missing one ear had seen better days, but when he pressed it against the glass, Kaya froze. Her nostrils flared as she caught the scent, a scent from 5 years past. The handlers gasped as she suddenly began signing frantically, "Baby, toy, mine." Noah didn't understand the gestures, but he understood the tears welling in those deep brown eyes. "You remember Mr. Trunks?" he whispered. Kaya's response was unequivocal. She gathered leaves and began making a nest for the toy, just as she'd once done for Noah's stuffed animals during their visits. Some bonds truly do stand the test of time. The banana trembled in Kaya's hand as she stared at it like a foreign object. 3 months of refused meals, 3 months of wasting away. Then Noah said the magic words, "Big Mama, you gotta eat." With her eyes locked on his, she slowly peeled the fruit and took a bite, then another. The keepers burst into quiet applause, but Dr. Prescott shushed them. This was no trick. This was trust. Kaya ate the entire banana, then reached for an orange, her gaze never leaving Noah's face. When juice dripped down her chin, the boy laughed, a sound that made Kaya's ears perk up like she'd been waiting years to hear it again.
Visitors stood shoulder to shoulder, not a dry eye among them. Grown men wiped their faces on their sleeves. Mothers hugged their children tighter. Even the security guards looked away to compose themselves. Because what played out before them wasn't just a zoo exhibit, it was raw, unfiltered emotion transcending species. Kaya now sat with her back against the glass, Noah mirroring her posture on the other side. Their hands aligned perfectly, separated only by inches of barrier. Someone's phone recorded it all, but most simply watched, humbled by this display of love that had endured years of separation and grief. The old keeper pulled Dr. Prescott aside, his voice rough with emotion. "After Leo died, I'd find her staring at Noah's photo in the enrichment files." He revealed how Kaya had carried a scrap of Noah's lost mitten for years, how she'd perk up whenever a child laughed in a certain pitch. "I tried telling people she was mourning 2 losses," Jean confessed, "but nobody listened." Now, as they watched Kaya play the tapping game with Noah like no time had passed, the truth was undeniable. Some bonds can't be broken, not by distance, not by time, not even by death. The old man's final whisper carried the weight of years. She never forgot her boy. The confession came quietly as the zoo prepared to close. "After Dad died," Noah admitted to his mother, "I stopped dreaming about her." The guilt in his voice mirrored Kaya's earlier grief. Charlotte hugged her son tight, realizing the terrible parallel. While Kaya had clung to Noah's memory, he'd buried hers to survive his own loss. Now those memories came flooding back with each tap on the glass, each familiar gesture. As they prepared to leave, Kaya pressed her entire torso against the barrier, as if trying to imprint this moment forever.
Noah made a promise into the glass. "I'll remember now, every day." Closing time approached, but Kaya refused to move from her spot by the glass. Exhaustion weighed heavy on her frame. 3 months of grief, followed by today's emotional storm. Finally, as Noah sang a lullaby he barely remembered knowing, her eyelids began to droop. The staff watched in awe as the mighty gorilla curled up right there on the viewing platform, one hand still pressed where Noah's had been. Her breathing slowed, deepened. For the first time since Leo's death, Kaya slept peacefully. Her nightmares kept at bay by the return of her first lost child. Noah backed away quietly, whispering, "Good night, Big Mama," as the keepers lowered the lights. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight she finally rested.
The delivery truck rolled in at dawn, its cargo more precious than gold. Inside the crate, a tiny mountain gorilla, no more than 8 months old, huddled in the corner, his fur matted with stress, eyes wide with terror. The rescue team called him Kai, meaning survivor in Swahili. His mother had been killed by poachers, his troops scattered. Dr. Prescott studied Kaya through the monitors. Would the grieving mother even acknowledge this orphan? Or would she see him as just another reminder of all she'd lost? Noah pressed his nose against the quarantine glass, whispering, "She'll love him, I know she will." But the truth was, no one knew what would happen when these two broken souls finally met. Kai wasn't what anyone expected. The moment the crate door opened, he exploded in a whirlwind of teeth and screams, lashing out at every hand that tried to comfort him. This wasn't a docile orphan needing mothering. This was a traumatized wild animal, furious at the world. The vet techs exchanged worried glances as Kaya observed from her enclosure, her expression unreadable. Noah watched her closely. "She understands," he said suddenly. "She knows what it's like to hurt so bad you want to bite everyone." And then, in a move that stunned the staff, Kaya did something extraordinary. She picked up Noah's stuffed elephant and held it against the separating bars, offering it to the screaming infant like a peace treaty.
The first introduction went disastrously. When Kai was placed in her enclosure, Kaya took one sniff and turned away, retreating to her corner. The baby gorilla wailed, reaching for her, but she refused to even look at him. Dr. Prescott's heart sank. This had been their last hope for both of them. Noah, watching from the observation deck, suddenly pounded on the glass. "Big Mama, no!" His voice cracked with desperation. "Don't do what I did! Don't walk away!" Kaya's head jerked up at the sound of his voice. For a long moment, gorilla and boy locked eyes through the glass. Then, slowly, Kaya turned back toward the sobbing infant and took one hesitant step forward. Tears streamed down Noah's face as he pressed both hands against the glass. "He needs you," the boy whispered, "just like I did." The entire primate house held its breath as Kaya approached the trembling orphan. Kai shrank back, expecting violence, but Kaya simply sat down an arm's length away and began grooming herself, the universal gorilla signal for, "I mean no harm." When Kai didn't run, she did something even more remarkable. She picked up a piece of fruit, peeled it carefully, and placed it halfway between them. An offering, an invitation. The baby stared at the food, then at Kaya, then back at the food. The seconds stretched endlessly, until a tiny hand reached out. It happened so slowly you could almost miss it. Kaya's arms, perpetually curled around her own emptiness these past months, gradually relaxed. Her shoulders dropped, her breathing steadied. And when Kai finally dared to take the fruit, Kaya didn't pull away. She simply watched, her dark eyes softer than anyone had seen them in years. Noah's mother gasped as the infant, emboldened, suddenly scrambled into Kaya's lap.
The staff braced for rejection, but it never came. Instead, Kaya's massive hands hovered over the tiny body, trembling with what could only be recognition. This wasn't Leo. This would never be Leo. But perhaps this was enough. Kai's fear erupted without warning. One second he was nestled against Kaya, the next his tiny teeth sank into her arm. The keepers moved to intervene, but Dr. Prescott held up a hand. Kaya didn't react with anger. She didn't even flinch. She simply waited until the infant released his grip, then gently licked the wound clean. When Kai tried to bite again, she caught his tiny hand in hers and held it firmly. Not punishing, just teaching. Noah laughed through his tears. "She's gonna be a great mom," he whispered. And in that moment, everyone watching understood the profound truth. Love isn't about replacing what you've lost. It's about making space for what finds you.
Noah pressed his palm against the glass as the baby gorilla explored his new mother's face with curious fingers. "Kai," he announced. "It means ocean in Hawaiian." Dr. Prescott raised an eyebrow. "Thought it meant survivor." Noah grinned. "It means both." Mom looked it up. The name suited him, unpredictable as the sea, resilient as the tides. Kaya tested the sound, rumbling it deep in her chest. "Kai," the keepers would later swear she repeated. Whether she truly spoke or not didn't matter. What mattered was the way her arms finally curled around living warmth again. Not the child she'd lost, not the boy she'd mourned, but this fierce little survivor who needed her just as badly. Dusk painted the enclosure in gold as Kaya settled into her nest, Kai clutched to her chest. The infant fought sleep valiantly, his tiny hands clutching her fur, but Kaya knew the ancient rhythms of motherhood. Her sway started subtly, a gentle rock, side to side, just enough to mimic the heartbeat he'd known in the womb. The keepers watched in reverent silence as the baby's eyelids fluttered, then closed. Noah, half asleep himself against his mother's shoulder, whispered, "She remembers how." And she did. Every motion, every touch, every instinct came flooding back as if Leo had only been sleeping this whole time. When Kai finally went limp in her arms, Kaya did something no one had seen since before his death. She smiled. Closing time came, but Noah lingered by the glass. Kaya watched him, one massive hand resting protectively on Kai's back. "You don't gotta miss me anymore," the boy whispered. "You got him now." The wisdom in those words hung heavy in the air. Kaya studied Noah for a long moment, then did something extraordinary. She kissed Kai's forehead, then pressed that same spot to the glass where Noah's lips would be. A blessing, a passing of the torch, a mother's way of saying thank you. Noah pressed back, his tears leaving streaks on the barrier. Some goodbyes aren't endings at all. They're the only way love knows how to grow. The cell phone footage was shaky, amateurish, just a visitor capturing what they thought was a cute moment. But when Gorilla Embraces Orphan after years of grief hit social media, the world stopped scrolling. Millions wept at the image of Kaya rocking Kai, her face transformed by something too profound to name. News vans crowded the zoo gates. Scientists debated animal emotion. Parents held their children tighter. But in the eye of this hurricane, Kaya remained undisturbed, her focus solely on the infant in her arms and the boy who visited daily. The world might see a viral sensation. She saw only what mattered. Two hearts, one tiny and one even smaller, that had somehow found their way home.
The seasoned zoologist stood before her colleagues, the weight of humility in her voice. "For 20 years, I've documented animal behavior," she confessed, staring at the monitor showing Kaya gently grooming Kai. "But what we're witnessing, this isn't just instinct." The scientific papers scattered across her desk, All her carefully constructed theories suddenly seemed inadequate. On screen, Kaya paused to sign love toward the observation window where Noah stood watching. Dr. Prescott removed her glasses, wiping her eyes. Some bonds defy all our textbooks. The room fell silent, save for the soft squeaks of the baby gorilla discovering his new mother's embrace. The old keeper's hands trembled as he opened the ancient specimen jar. Inside, a tiny tuft of silver-black fur, all that remained of Kaya's firstborn. She deserves closure, Jean murmured, placing it in an enrichment box. When Kaya discovered the familiar scent, her reaction shattered everyone present. Not grief, not anguish, but quiet acceptance. She cradled the fur briefly, then showed it to Kai, as if saying, "This was your brother." Noah, watching through tears, understood what the staff didn't. Kaya wasn't saying goodbye to Leo. She was introducing him to his sibling. Some loves don't end. They make room.
Construction paper, crayoned in childish strokes, showed 3 figures: Kaya, Kai, and a much smaller gorilla with wings. Noah slipped it into the habitat through the feeding chute. When Kaya found it, she carried the drawing to her nest with unusual care, protecting it from Kai's curious fingers. Later, keepers would find it tucked safely beneath her bedding, slightly worn from being handled. Dr. Prescott framed the photo of that moment, the massive gorilla studying the child's artwork with heartbreaking tenderness. Science couldn't explain it, but love didn't need to. The zoo's opening became an event. Like clockwork, Kaya would position herself by the viewing glass each morning, Kai clinging to her back. Her eyes never left the entrance gates. When Noah's familiar figure finally appeared, her entire body relaxed in visible relief. The staff noticed something remarkable. On days Noah visited, Kaya ate better, played more, even tolerated the crowds. His mother Charlotte watched these reunions with quiet awe. She's not just his friend, she realized aloud one morning. She's his guardian. The truth resonated through the observation deck. Some connections transcend cages, species, even time itself.
The difference was subtle but profound. Before Noah's return, waiting had been agony for Kaya, each passing minute another weight on her grief. Now, when school obligations kept him away, she would simply sigh and turn to Kai, her patience steady as ancient redwoods. The baby gorilla had become her living anchor to the present. Staff logs noted the change. Subject shows marked decrease in distress behaviors during absences. Noah understood best of all. "She knows I'm coming back," he told Dr. Prescott proudly. And that simple faith, the certainty of return, had healed wounds deeper than anyone dared hope. Dr. Prescott's new research paper made waves in scientific circles. Prolonged grief response observed in western lowland gorilla following dual loss of offspring and human attachment figure. The dry academic language couldn't mask the revolutionary truth beneath. Animals don't just feel, they remember, they love, they mourn across years. As the zoologist presented her findings, footage played of Kaya's reunion with Noah, her maternal care of Kai. The toughest skeptics in the audience found themselves reaching for tissues. "We've been measuring animal intelligence all wrong," Prescott concluded. "The real question isn't how much they understand, it's how much we've failed to."
The question haunted every keeper. 5 years? 10? A lifetime? Jean had the closest answer. "However long it takes," the old man said, watching Kaya teach Kai the tapping game Noah had created. The baby gorilla's clumsy attempts made Kaya rumble with what could only be laughter. Nearby, Noah, now 12, grinned through the glass, his own hands moving in mirrored rhythm. The cycle was complete, the lesson unmistakable. Love isn't measured in years, but in moments that outlast them. As the trio played their cross-species symphony of taps and laughter, even the most hardened biologists had to admit, some memories never fade. They simply wait to be rediscovered. High school loomed, college after that. But as Noah stood before Kaya explaining his upcoming absence, the gorilla simply listened, her wise eyes missing nothing. When he finished, she did something extraordinary. Placed Kai's tiny hand against the glass opposite Noah's. A silent vow. The boy understood immediately. "I'll visit every break," he whispered, "and when I'm grown, I'll bring my kids." Kaya's satisfied grunt said she'd hold him to that. As Noah walked away, he didn't look back. He didn't need to. Some promises don't require words to be kept.
Winter brought changes. Kaya moved slower now, her fur graying at the temples. But when Noah visited for Thanksgiving break, she met him with undimmed joy, pressing her weathered palm exactly where his had grown so much larger. Kai, now a boisterous juvenile, mimicked the gesture enthusiastically. The contrast struck Noah suddenly. How small his hand had been at their first meeting, how much life had happened since. Kaya seemed to sense his thoughts. With deliberate care, she placed her massive hand over his reflection, then over Kai's, bridging past and future in one timeless gesture. The keepers would later say that was the moment they finally understood. Love isn't measured in days together, but in the marks left on each other's souls. Dr. Prescott stood before Kaya's habitat one final time before retirement. The old gorilla watched her with knowing eyes, Kai now nearly full-grown beside her. The scientist's voice broke as she spoke aloud what her research had proven. "You loved him. You never stopped." Kaya's response was simple. She signed love toward Noah's usual spot, then touched her heart. No cages between them now, no barriers of doubt. Just two mothers who'd learned the same truth, that grief and love are two sides of the same coin, and neither recognizes species. As Prescott turned to leave, Kaya did something no protocol could explain. She blew a kiss, and for the first time in her decorated career, the doctor blew one right back.